Hearthstone Grandmasters for America's final Swiss top 4 for Season 1 is about to begin. Coming up next, we have Nalguidan versus justsaiyan, and a battle between two players who have been some of the most consistent in Americas, perhaps the most consistent American player in the past year and a half, 2 years, against the most consistent Latin America player from the past couple of years as well. So Battle of Titans from the sub-regions of the greatest region in Hearthstone, TJ.
The Americas.
The Americas. Woo! So here are the classes available, something that we weren't really surprised by. Druid, Shaman, Paladin seem to be the core 3 classes that everyone's been leaving up after the bans. Remember, these are blind bans. And then the 4th class has been Hunter, although Hunter's been still getting the win. So it feels like you're trying to narrow down those other 3 classes and accept that Hunter probably will get through. Not always been the case, but very much the case a lot of the times, because if you look at the Hunter win rate, it's in the 60s, and that's absurd for a weekend of tournament spanning hundreds of games. So it feels like Hunter definitely is going to be on the table for most of these players, and they've been opening with it, and we'll see how they respond. Our first T-Mobile Deck Spotlight opportunity is Nalguidan's Galakrond Shaman. And let's take a look at how Galakrond Shaman has been looking so far. They've been including, of course, the Galakrond Invocations through Devoted Maniac, Corrupt Elementalist, Invocation of Frost. However, they also have included the Bogspine Knuckles and Desert Hare Evolve package, featuring a couple of other cue cards like the Bogstrack Clacker, as well as even just throwing a Dread Corsair to try and get them some better tempo as they go for those evolves. CJ, you've played a lot of this deck. Are you enamored by it, or do you feel like it's more of one of those pocket picks that people just aren't expecting?
At least I have a newfound respect for it and its intricacies. The biggest thing for the deck is just trying to stick minions on the board any way possible, and sometimes that means not just playing on curve and kind of holding on to get that one powerful swing turn, right? I had a lot of games where I would kind of pass or just totem up and do a weak play in the early game, just to be able to hold on to things like Desert Hare or Devoted Maniac, or the Bogspine Knuckles turns, and try and go for a big push there and stabilize that low life total. It still is one of those decks that's susceptible to just having those awkward draws where it can never get the board, or it doesn't draw like Bogspine Knuckles or the Bogstrack Clacker in order to make use out of the early game. So I do think that the deck is probably a little better than players are giving it credit for. I mean, it's at a 45% win rate, or Shaman in general is at a 45% win rate. I would say the Galakrond version specifically is closer to 50%, because I think that Totem Shaman brings that win rate down. But I do like how the intricacies of this deck and how it can pop off if you get the right draws and end games the second you play Bogspine Knuckles, or at least maybe the second swing with some of those massive evolves. So definitely a fun deck to watch, and that's from our perspective as casters, that's what we want, and from your perspective as viewers, that's what you want. You want decks that are fun to watch and explosive, and this deck has that.
Oh yeah, and it's got some shenanigans, but that's kind of what makes the deck feel slightly weaker than the slightly is might be a little bit of a light exaggeration here, but slightly weaker than the previous Evolved Shamans, where there's just a lot of variability that you can't really control. But the power, the potential power of this deck, we've seen it a few times where you get those really fast evolves, and once more, Mogu Flesh Shaper, now that it costs 9 mana, has a chance of hitting these 10 mana minions. So if you're going up against Evolved Shaman, you never really know. Think of it as Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, the deck. And it feels like, it goes both ways. Sometimes you have these incredible results, and then sometimes you can struggle. But, that is the most interesting deck that we're going to be looking at today, and that is your T-Mobile Deck Spotlight. as we get ready for game number 1. We're going to flip it around here a little bit. We're not having Nalguidan play the Shaman. That's going to come up potentially later in this series. For now, we're going to start off with Saiyan on his Shaman versus Nalguidan, except...
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, is it the other way around?
Yeah, I think the portraits are flipped. Because Saiyan does not have a Rocket Aug Merchant in his Totem Shaman list.
Ah, okay. I might be misunderstanding.
Or a Waste Warden. So I believe we're going to start off with Saiyan on Hunter and Nalguidan on Shaman. Nalguidan will be playing the deck we just spotlighted. So looks like the perspectives are just flipped, which hopefully we can get fixed in a moment. But yeah, I just double checked. I saw it at first and I was like, that's not correct. And there's a Galakrond, and Saiyan doesn't play Galakrond Shaman, he plays Totem Shaman. So.
That's true. That is true. However, Saiyan is also playing that Highlander Hunter and has a opportunity to curve pretty easily. Has Zephyrus, Fairy Dragon, Diving Griffin, and Zigzor Apex Predator. I kind of wonder if he is incentivized to go for ramp with his Zephyrus because he has heavier cards to try and ramp too. Or perhaps he feels like because of all Shaman tries to get onto the board very quickly, he might just save Zephyrus for removal option or even just try to go for tempo immediately.
Yeah, that's kind of a good question. The Shaman doesn't really have too much of a chance to contest the Hunter as you start to get to the later turns. You really have to hit the ground running. And because of that, I don't necessarily like the ramp. I like kind of just playing for the board, because if you just use your early game to fight for board and you have the stronger later turns, then you're going to want to play for board, right? And it's worked out so far for Hunters. Hunter is currently at a whopping nearly 80% win rate across 24 games in the Americas versus Shaman. So Shaman has not been beating Hunter very often. And granted, there are a few different types of Shamans. I still think that both of them are quite weak to what Highlander Hunter has to offer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that Highlander Hunter kind of just preys a lot on some of these setups that Shaman has, although Nalguidan is one Bogspine Knuckles away from potential greatness here.
Oh yeah.
If he feels inclined, though, he could play the Desert Hare for board presence. I mean, in the end, it's not great, but if you want to, say, challenge the Diving Griffin, it's not easy for your opponent to deal with a bunch of 1/1s as Hunter. One of Hunter's weaknesses is small, wide boards, and they require cards like Unleash the Hounds and Swarm of Locusts in order to deal with it. Oh, yeah? Your own Murlocs? Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to at least clear off one of these. If you're gonna eat your own Murloc with the Hunger Crab and then just let it die to a 4/1 Diving Griffin on the other side, that doesn't seem good. So he's gonna cash in on the Hunger Crab value before it bites the dust. And yeah, I mean, Nalguidan is outside the Desert Hare. His early game is pretty much stalled after this. Bogspine Knuckles would be a sick draw, though.
It would be. And that's something that, again, as in Nalguidan's seat, he's saving the Desert Hare for the optimal combos, but there's no guarantee that he's going to have that.
Yeah.
He draws potentially 2 cards next turn if he draws Farsight, if he plays Farsight. Mm-hmm. And that's very low chances. That's 1 out of 11, these 22 cards that you draw 2. And 9% of the time you land Bogspine Knuckles. It feels like you'd rather just have that tempo available. However, because Desert Hare is just kind of weak on the board, and it's so easy to blow out if Saiyan just has the Unleash the Hounds, that I think he just doesn't want to risk that right now.
Yeah. Agreed. Oh my god. Oh,
but he's overloaded.
Oh, he's overloaded the Sludge Slurper. Oh no. Forgot about the Sludge Slurper. It's okay though. He's just gonna have one dead turn.
Yeah.
And then he goes for it.
Oh gosh, the mutate off the far site though. That's
rough.
That is one of the big criticisms I have with that. This deck does have so many whiffs with Farsight. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 cards that cost 2 or less. Now, I guess if reducing 2 to 0 doesn't feel as bad, but it's still an incredibly high amount of cards for you to just feel bad, discounting 1 to 0 or 0 to 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's rough. But the mutate will allow him to retry with one of these 4-drops from the Desert Hare after the Bogspine Knuckles. Like, say he gets one, like a 2-3 or something along those lines. So, it's not... I guess it's the worst outcome. But at least he has this... Is that a Dread Corsair? Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this
Here we go.
is peak performance. You may not like it. But this is what peak Shaman performance looks like. Oh, okay.
Oh,
all right.
He can mutate the Psychopomp too. He trades over, mutates Psychopomp, and that is well above average.
Oh yeah.
For stat lines.
And in fact, it might be one.
Shadowward Ruin.
Shadowward Ruin destroys everything, though. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Having Zephyrus as a way to cover the big power spike from your opponent makes it tough for Nalguidan to guarantee that he gets any traction. He does find Shield of Galakron, though. The Galakron does allow Nalguidan to go for yet another series of evolves. We'll get a 6, 3, and 2 mana minion at most if he wants to go for full greed. He can hold on to this weapon. Yep. Dino Tamer Brand on curve. Nalguidan gets no breaks.
It hurts.
We talked about how Hunter is just uncontested with its pure power level. If he plays Galakron right now, does he even get a 4/4? No, it's only invoked one time.
Yeah, I think these are 2 mana minions for the 2/2s. Doesn't really have a choice though. He's got to trade him in. I guess he can hope for like Mogu Flesh Shaper or the second Desert Hare off the top, but he's going to start running out of time really quickly here. And he's used Farsight. He's used both Farsights actually. His ability to draw cards is also severely limited because I don't think Nalguidan... he does play Novice Engineers, so that's like a 2-drop that would draw him a card that can also evolve into a 3-drop with the swing from the Bogspine Knuckles, but it's rough. He could also get Kronks. Kronks would probably be one of the best, if not the best draw off the top. And Hungry Crab not coming out. Nalguidan has used his only Sludge Slurper in the deck. I guess he doesn't want to make Mogu Flesh Shaper cheaper.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Does he want to bump in this extra Storm Elemental as well? If he does, he's just going to go for this solo 10-drop. Finds Deathwing, and in his mind that's good enough, but Saiyan just has a very easy answer in the form of Broadmesh Drake. And that should do it. That's too much to come back from. I think even if Nalguidan gets another Mogu Flesh Shaper, evolves to another Deathwing, it might be it's still not enough.
Yeah.
Because Saiyan does have the answer, and he also has pressure tools. He could just go for Kill Command lethals if he draws just a little bit more damage.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Saiyans hold off the Hungry Crab for the Kill Command possibility to make sure that he has a beast.
Right.
But should be the nail in the coffin here. Oh, cool. You're Sarah Unleashed. Nice.
Yeah, honestly, if he just played anything, he was just threatening a lot of lethal. And this is exactly the situation that we've seen Shaman get into a few times to show that Hunter just has higher quality draws on average, and Shaman's very combo oriented. And if Shaman's combos get stopped, then they're just kind of sitting there waiting to die. And so Satan gets a game 1 victory pretty easily, and that leads us to potentially Nalguidan playing Hunter eventually as well.
Yep.
But Hunter continues to dominate in this current format right now.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that the ideal Desert Hare evolve in that situation would have been, like a bunch of Yetis, just to dodge out from the Shadow Word Ruin from the Zephyrs. Obviously, you can't expect Zephyrs to be there all the time, but Zephyrs ruining our fun combos with the Evolved Shaman once again. Unfortunate, but nicely played by Saiyan to realize, like, I don't need to play Zephyrs in the early game for tempo, because I'm probably not going to fall too far behind on board, and if I do, it's likely an all-in, and Zephyrs can bail me out. And that's exactly what ended up happening. That's like the ideal sequence of draws from Nalguidan once he sees Bogspine Knuckles. It's Desert Hare and Dread Corsair to get that immediate evolve and immediate board presence. It just wasn't enough.
That's right. So we're going to get ready for game number 2 momentarily here, as Nalguidan has to either choose the same deck or play something else, but he has complete freedom. Remember, it's open conquest, so they have an opportunity to not play Shaman for the rest of the series, which might be advisable. Statistically, Shaman has just been struggling the most, and instead he might turn to his Druid and his Paladin, or like we're talking about, Hunter right back. And then for Saiyan, is he going to be playing things like his Totem Shaman and his Token Druid? Those were the 2 more unconventional choices.
Yeah.
The Totem Shaman, as we've been describing all weekend, feels a little memey. Not exactly the most reliable and consistent of decks, but it is glorious when it wins. You win, it just feels so good. It feels like a complete satisfying victory. And for the Token Druid, it's just a little unusual because you're playing like the usual Token Druid style instead of like waiting for Kael'thas power swings. You're building the board as early as turn 2, and you try to overwhelm your opponent with non-stop Treant pressure.
Yeah, there are things that work against each other in that Token Druid deck. Like, for example, you play quite a few more minions, but also Fungal Fortunes. So, like, you play the Garden Gnomes. So that kind of works against it. And also, like, Glowfly Swarm, if you're incentivized to build an early board and use your spells to be proactive onto the board to set up earlier Savage or lethals, then Glowfly Swarm doesn't have as much fodder for spells. But the thing about that deck is that it has flexibility, right? In the slower matchups where you can afford to kind of wait for things, you could fall for Glowfly Swarm or Fungal Fortunes and then try and go wide on the board early. And then for matchups where you need to get on the board early, you just mull those away and go for like the Tree Enforcements and the Dreamway Guardians, things like that. So we'll see if that deck is going to come out in the series. But it looks like we're going to be seeing the Paladin from Saiyan.
That's right. Nalguidan staying on the Shaman very resiliently, and it could be the fact that he has identified that Shaman does have a good matchup if Saiyan plays the Druid. And I think Saiyan is not going to play the Druid as long as Shaman is up. Don't give that Shaman an easy matchup. Instead, play matchups that, quite frankly, give Shamans a hard time. Shamans have always kind of struggled against Paladin if they don't have convenient access to early game tempo and AoE cards. I believe there were obviously metas where Shaman was really dominant, but they were like the S+ tier deck. This is back when mid-range Shaman or Galakar Shaman ruled the meta. But generally speaking, Shaman kind of has a hard time versus Paladins because 1-1s beat 0-2s as a general rule of thumb. The win rate this weekend has been an abysmal 36%. If you look at the Swiss results heading into today.
Yikes.
And it might have gotten even worse because I haven't really seen Shamans beat Paladins during our group stages.
Yeah, it's been tough.
Yeah, and it's not an irrelevant sample size either. Sorry to it's the second most popular matchup that Shaman. So
yeah. That makes sense because it seems like Hunter with its insane win rate is just winning all the time, and then so Shaman is only really playing against other Shamans, Paladins, and Druids,
right,
as like the most popular matchups. So, but we're just kind of having an early board battle here, which seems to be the case for most of these Shaman versus Paladin matchups, and we'll see whether or not Nalguidan can capitalize on this. The Desert Hare here, just playing onto the board, would be weak to pretty much only Consecration.
Yeah, or Magic Carpet.
Magic Carpet plus the 1-drop, yeah. But even then, you still keep 2 minions around, which means that the Bogstrap Clacker can come down next turn and get some meaty evolves.
Right. This is good recognition by Nalguidan on the fact that Saiyan doesn't have a consistent deck. By playing Highlander Paladin with very few removal tools compared to a defensive Paladin deck, this is a lot trickier for Saiyan than you would like. Blessing of Wisdom to try and dig. Finds the escaped Mana Saber. Says, you know what?
Oh, this is smart, because if Nalguidan wants to evolve here with Knuckles or Bogstrap Clacker, he would have to not trade his minions. And so this Blessing of Wisdom is sort of protected by the fact that Nalguidan has to make the decision to trade off his board or evolve. So going with Blessing of Wisdom face almost ensures that either one, Nalguidan has a much weaker evolve turn, or two, he gets to draw another card next turn with this Sand Wasp. This is actually a nice little setup here.
Right. Right, and it's obviously not ideal if his opponent has the Bog Spine Knuckles, but Nalguidan does not. He does have the Clacker, though. And like you said, Saiyan will set it up so that way Nalguidan, even if he gets 4 drops, as long as they don't have Rush or Charge.
Oh, well, Pit Lord's good.
Yeah, Pit Lord is well statted, but looks like he whiffed on the other evolve. Saiyan picks up Hand of a Doll. Also, are there shared minion types for the Waste Warden?
No. There's one. The Bogstrap Clacker doesn't have a tribe. The Pit Lord's a demon, and nothing else is relevant. I mean, he could kill his own with beasts, but. That's about it.
That's about it. So, what does Saiyan choose to do? Choose over Champion here, a little bit off curve, and his draw with the Sir Finlay doesn't really change much here. I think he just wants to kill off the Pit Lord and stop a potential potential Knuckles weapon draw here to kind of really mess him up. But this looks like an opportunity for Nalguidan to get really far ahead now.
Yeah. Mutate actually is perfect for this curve, because overall the Rust-Sworn Cultist, that 3/3 greenish minion there, is pretty understated for 4, so you can value trade that over and mutate it, and then play like Shield of Galakron.
Yeah, I thought that was a Plague Bringer for the Rogue class, but yeah, you're right, it is the Cultist. Malagos appears here, Shield of Galakron. This is kind of a big board, it's starting to get a little scary.
And still no Waste Warden, really. There's a Dragon and an Elemental, but nothing is shared across everything on the board, so Saiyan doesn't really have an option but to try and dig here with Escape Mana Saber and then set up for hopefully a turn where he can start clearing things off the board. You'd think that the Bogstrap Clacker would be a beast, but it's not.
Why would we think the Because
it's a crab. Hunger Crab's a beast.
I mean, just because it has pincers, you think it's a crab? Just because it looks like a crustacean creature? Are you judging a crab by its cover, TJ?
Well, I mean, even if it's a different... crustaceous creature. If a crab is classified as a beast, that should be too. I don't know, Dan. Maybe I'm being obtuse.
Well, I believe that in 2020, you know, these crabs can choose to be whatever they want. They don't have to just be crabs just because that's the way they were born.
Yeah.
Anyways, Sir Finley of the Sands, Saiyan looking for a last opportunity to survive here. Finds dire shapeshift as an opportunity to survive. Everything else is like aggression oriented, and he doesn't really need that.
One thing that Saiyan does have going for him is that this deck from Nalguidan lacks direct damage outside of the Knuckles, or evolves into charge minions.
Right.
I guess you could also lump the Galakrond weapon in that category, but his Galakrond is only at the 2 stage, even with the Corrupt Elementalist in hand.
Right.
It still would not be fully invoked, so he would not have that weapon.
Is this a Faceless Corruptor set up? Are you just going to die if you do that? He might have to take that risk. Did we just see like Hungry Crabs on both sides get some like mysterious smoke thing set up there? That was kind of interesting.
Is it a message?
Strange.
Is it a message from above?
That's right. It was the dying wish of the Boxrock Clacker. Avenge me, fellow crab.
Well,
interesting trades all the way down here. Nalguidan doesn't set up a lethal this way. He does invoke his Galakrond, so now it becomes one invocation away from getting there, but Saiyan does have ways to fight back onto the board here. He's got the Waste Warden and he's got the Overconfident Orc. Probably wants to shut down the Corrupt Elementalist because it's a higher mana cost, therefore has a higher potential way to get punished if he leaves it up for an evolved target.
Hey, he's not too worried about
leaving
a taunt minion up. Well, that's the final invoke, but it would mean that he would have a weak turn this turn. But it would set up for a very strong turn next turn.
Yeah, I am scared about the potential of what the Highlander deck can do, right? Saiyan's been holding some cards for a long time and has the potential to drop Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like you would do much anyways with 4/4, so logic is that at least you would have 8/8 rushers to respond to these big dragons.
Okay, Underline Angling Rod. Perfect timing now that the Hungry Crab from Nalguidan has hit the board. But there was a good amount of mana floated from Nalguidan there, and just a Hungry Crab and a Totem Up played with the remaining 3 mana. I think Nalguidan would have played pretty much anything else other than like Galakrond and Kronks.
I think he would have probably even played Kronk that turn because it was Invocation of Frost, so I think that is purely pointing towards one card in the hand. So if you're saying you've got the read, now what do you do with that? If you go for Underlight Angling Rod and attack, you're down to 6 health.
You can Hero Power to go back up.
Yeah, it's true. Otherwise, if he just plays stuff and doesn't Hero Power, he will die. McGurgle getting some time, him and the buddies, me and the boys in the tavern. Going up against Shaman. Nalguidan's Galakrond is fully invoked, and here's the problem is that even if Saiyan armors up next turn, he will die because of the weapon swing.
Yeah. He needs to heal, remove these 8/8s and heal. Which is a tall task. Or taunt. Yep, taunt as well.
Right. He could remove everything and then taunt. However, Nalguidan has a lot going for him right now, and I think Saiyan might just be a little bit too weak in the life department.
Yeah. Is there any cheap taunts they could pick up? Bone Wraith? If he draws Bone Wraith,
Okay,
he could, like,
Shadow Word Ruin,
Zephyrus,
Bone
Shadow
Wraith.
Word Ruin, Bone Wraith?
That would be one potential out. And I don't think that's it. I think Saiyan can... what can he do here? I guess there's a Murloc, potentially, that could help him turn the tides. There's no taunt Murlocs, I believe. Saiyan can't figure it out. Looks like he is going to concede, and that will do it for game number 2. Nalguidan wins with the Shaman versus the Paladin, one of its toughest matchups this weekend here.
Yeah, and you could see Saiyan was relatively close to stabilizing, but his like mid game just had a couple weaknesses, and he was never able to fully come back on board. He would have needed a wide board clear, but then Galakrond would have punished him regardless of how it panned out. He just took too much damage. So now we're tied up. So both players have, well, I guess Nalguidan has won with arguably his weaker deck in the lineup, where Saiyan has won with the Hunter. So Nalguidan still has Hunter and probably Druid as his next deck. There's a chance that he could play as Paladin, but he hasn't shown much willingness to play Paladin. He is playing the Murloc Paladin. And that feels like the weaker version. Sometimes it can have good starts. And there are a couple decks that Saiyan does not have a Hungry Crab in, notably his Totem Shaman, but his Token Druid has 2, and obviously his Highlander Paladin has 1, as we just saw. So it might be a little risky to play the Murloc Paladin, because at tempo, as we've seen so often throughout this weekend, the tempo gain from an early Hungry Crab onto a Murloc against Murloc Paladin is often too hard to come back from.
That's right. It's pretty swingy. Like, you might think, oh, it's just like eating 2-1. But at the same time, it's the fact that it becomes a 1-mana 3/4 and deals damage and swings the board. You kind of think about, how impactful, early game cards like SI7 Agent can help, like, thwart the aggression and start grabbing the tempo for Rogue. This doesn't require combo activator except for your opponent to have a Murloc, and it's also 2-mana cheaper. So it's pretty insane, even if it's just dealing like a little bit of damage to your opponent Murloc and getting stats. So that's the Shaman in the books here. Now I'm going to turn to his Spell Druid to try turn the tides here as we get ready for game number 3. Taking a look at any of the differences we've seen from the Spell Druids in the past. Seems like Nalguidan very much favoring the Starfall list that tries to get ready for the potential mirror. And as a result, plays a lot of one-ofs, right? One of Wrath and Power of the Wild and Rising Winds, the one of Bees, the one of Soul of the Forest, potentially one of the more contentious choices, given how important cards like Soul of the Forest is for building your board.
Yeah, but the Ysera Unleashed has proven to be a fantastic tool for the players that have included it in the past few weeks at having one extra reload onto the board. And since the deck can usually draw quite quickly, the portals become relatively consistent once you have played an overflow in the game, or just getting to turn 9 gives you options to draw deeper with Rising Winds or with Overflow to make those come out. And here we go. Totem Shaman. There's a lot of early game removal in the deck. It may not seem like it, but you have Crystal Powers, Moonfires, Bog Beams, Wrath. There's a lot of Bees as well. There's a lot of things that can just remove your totems. But if the Druid is having to play these things that are removing totems, then it means they have less fodder later on. And, already Saiyan faced up against what seems to be the most intimidating 3-2 I've ever come across.
Yeah, and he does have an option to go for a unique play by using Totemic Reflection just for the buff.
Yeah.
Totemic Reflection doesn't have to be played on a totem. You can just still give a minion +2/+2. And it doesn't seem like a great play because you're like, aren't the whole point? on totems, but he needs to get that early game board. We've seen what happens when you lose the board. And this will force Nalguidan to play reactively through Crystal Power and then give Saiyan another turn to set up. Fortunately for Saiyan, now he has a lot of good development options. He can play Magic Carpet. He can actually just play up strip Evil Totem, which I think is also worth considering here. Yeah. And he can keep it alive, heading into a ramp turn for Nalguidan.
And these lackeys are not insignificant because of the Magic Carpet. Oh my goodness gracious!
Jeez, it's a
that
lot
turn
of Mount Seller.
Is going to be huge.
Yes, it kind of depends on what the beasts being summoned are. Obviously, like Nalguidan could get Desert Hares, could also get King Muklas. It's a pretty wide range.
He could, but just having a massive exotic Mount Seller might just be enough. And now with Gift of the Wild picked up, if Nalguidan just sticks a couple minions on this board,
maybe.
Is Magic Carpet enough?
Magic Carpet
the question.
has a lot going for it.
It does.
Zane did a good job also making sure that nothing gets wiped by Moonfire, so he's not playing things like his Sludge Slurper or his lackeys. Moonfires, I guess, whatever you feel like is a potential way for you to interact with the board. I don't think Nalguidan could kill any minions here.
No, he can't kill anything, but he can set up quite a big board.
Right. Emperor Cobra is nice. Ooh. Wow.
All right. I mean,
so
Nalguidan's out of stuff. So,
right.
At least from Saiyan's perspective, if he can shoot through this board a little bit, it might be okay.
Lackey?
Yeah.
I mean, these lackeys all do 2 damage each. It's pretty powerful. 1 mana, deal 2 damage for the minions on board. Finds ways to reload. Malikos and Nozdormu are probably too expensive for the deck.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the very least, it seems like these 2 taunts are checked. But the Mount Seller does not look like it's checked. We shall see. Okay, Nerf set Ritualist. No, not really doing much here. Just Saiyan does have an opportunity to grab a spell that could be impactful. Lightning Bolt.
Serpent Shrine Portal is also interesting, but he can't play both Serpent Shrine Portals.
Yep. Yeah, that double Iron Bark being super strong.
Yeah.
Saiyan not playing, or not attacking rather, with his minions.
Oh.
Nalguidan finds Fungal Fortunes off the top.
Oh my goodness.
Another Fungal Fortunes.
Oh, it hurts.
To a Soul of the Forest, which could just lock out the rest of this game here for Saiyan.
Does he ever, if he Soul of the Forest and trades off power, does he ever die to Bloodlust? I don't think so. At this point, is it really even necessary to play Soul of the Forest? Like, he has Glowfly Swarm. He could just take off as much stuff as possible.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, this is looking pretty bad for Saiyan. Doesn't seem like Shaman's in a position to be able to come back from this. Just too much stats on the board. He's going to lose 2 of his most valuable minions. And he is dead next turn. It is over. Spell Druid withstands the Shaman, and Saiyan built the Shaman to kill Druid. And that is another upset for Nalguidan. 1 game away from going to the finals with 2 unfavorables going his way.
Yeah, that was You can see even that was. I wouldn't call that ideal start for Totem Shaman by any stretch of the imagination, but that was decent. But Druid, as we've seen, can just do such powerful things. Whether it's just early fungal fortunes into like an Innervate Goldfly Swarm, that's almost impossible to deal with, or ramp into Kael'thas or exotic Mount Seller turns. Like that's what the deck is designed to do. It's designed to pop off like that, and because the deck does have a decent amount of early removal, as I mentioned, Crystal Powered Moonfire, Bees, Wrath, Bogbeam. Even though some of those cards are designed to, be cheap fodder for Kael'thas or exotic Mount Seller, they do help the Druid get through some rough early games. And I would say that was one of them. He had the overgrowth and then was able to pop up with exotic Mount Seller, and the game was over from there.
Yeah, so that means Nalguidan's up 2-1 overall, and Spell Druid having things like the exotic Mount Seller, which I believe I was seeing some predictions from people who said that the final versions of Spell Druid would cut exotic Mount Seller. They're saying if the meta continues to evolve and we refine decks, exotic Mount Seller would probably be one of those cards that's on the chopping block first, because it is susceptible to things like Fungal Fortune discarding it. However, you kind of see what happens when the deck can use cards like Mount Seller to make a comeback. Because if that Mount Seller was just Kael'thas, nothing's happening that turn.
Yeah.
He had 2 Iron Barks and a Moonfire. Like, Kael'thas doesn't do anything in that situation. So, except for play a 4/7 on the board. So I think that it's something worth evaluating, right? If you're looking at deck lists and people say, oh, I'm so tied into like this one card effect that says discard any minions drawn. I think you're tunneling a little bit too hard on the worst case scenario when you have to understand the average case is makes it okay to play for now. Obviously, we still have yet a little bit more innovation to go about, and it's still kind of early days into the new patch because we've had a week and a half under this new patch recently.
Yeah.
But we shall see. Oh, okay. All right. So Saiyan is in the same spot as he was yesterday, but the roles have reversed. Hungry Crab's in the opening hand here for Nalguidan.
That's exactly what he's talking through right now.
Yeah, he's like, I keep Sludge Slurper knowing that my opponent has a 1 of Hungry Crab in a Highlander deck?
Ugh.
The only copy.
He punished BNC for it yesterday. He kept it.
He's also on the play, so Nalguidan has a 1-drop. And if he doesn't play this, it's because he's anticipating Murloc. Okay, but Saiyan still shouldn't play the Sludge Slurper because he has options.
Yeah.
So
the coin
the
I think
later
he needs to hold on to.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to say that the later the Hungry Crab moment happens, the less impact it has. Because, turn 4 or 5, you can answer a 1-mana 3 a lot easier than you can on turn 2.
I'm really surprised he coined out here, because that locks him into a Sludge Slurper play next turn. I guess this deck... I guess it does make sense. Because this deck relies on having an early board, and just getting a faster board is obviously better in a lot of cases. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
He gets a Kobold Lackey, which I don't think is what he necessarily was anticipating. I think he wanted the Rush Lackey to shut down the taunt and maybe kill off his own Sludge Slurper. But now the Hungry Crab. And Saiyan's he's off curve now because he just overloaded for 1.
Yep.
And, to be fair, Saiyan doesn't have a high likelihood of being able to get the Rush Lackey. But look at this Hungry Crab, and Saiyan's like, yeah, all right, okay, fine. I took the risk. I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah, you got me.
Now, Shaman be struggling.
Yeah. At least Saiyan can smile about it, because he did the same thing to make it to top 4 yesterday.
Right, and I mean... He understood the risks, and I think he said, with the Shaman, I gotta take a risk because this is a bad matchup. Hunter's been praying. Still not out of it yet, though. There's not a really good curve for Nalguidan, and he's still 3 turns away.
Yeah. So he gets a 3-drop here and gets to clear this board with the Guardian Aug Merchant. So he's going to stick a board. So, I mean, despite what was... It seemed like the roughest early game you could possibly imagine for Totem Shaman, just having to trade in everything, 2-drop into Hunger Crab, 2-drop for Nalguidan.
Oh. Okay. Man, inside Totem doesn't die to the Escape Mana Saber. Nalguidan would have to kill command that. Of course, he could draw something that would immediately allow him to kill it. He does not.
Or he could just trade play Dino Timber Brand.
Oh, you're right. The Mana Crystal, I forgot about that at the brief moment. Oh, jeez. Oh, seems like, attack my face, attack my face.
Oh, the Totemic Might, he would have been punished so hard.
And that
so
will
close,
do
but so
it.
far.
Saiyan already guaranteed a spot in Division A, and that'll do it for the first series. Nalguidan wins 3-1 after a convincing performance and also a very poor performance from Shaman. But I was going to say that Nalguidan, after that first loss to Shaman, didn't skip a beat.
Yeah. And that also preserves Galen's first seed for now. He's currently at 11 points, the only player at 11 points. I think Nalguidan was at 9. So if Nalguidan wins out, then he might overtake Galen's first seed. But just for bragging rights, essentially, that first seed is. Once you get placed into your divisions, those points are essentially gone forever. But the next semifinal, Monsanto Purple semifinal, that one a little bit more high stakes because it is the difference of making Division A or in being in Division B for these players. The winner is in, the loser is out. It's as simple as that.
Yep, that's right. So that will set the stage for our featured match of the day. Purple versus Monsanto. Winner goes to Division A, which has the playoff-heavy spots. 6 out of the 8 will qualify for some kind of bracket opportunity for playoffs, while in Division B, 4 out of those 8 spots are in danger of relegation or will get relegated. So we're going to take our break, and when we come back, we're going to get Purple versus Monsanto underway. Stay tuned. You're watching Hearthstone Grandmasters for Americas, presented by T-Mobile.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile, helping you stay connected to what matters most. Learn about T-Mobile's COVID-19 response on T-Mobile.com.